My name is Paul Jefferies, and today I've been invited back by these lovely people at Thomas and George Martin to talk to you again, and I've chosen the subject today of improvisation. And I brought along with me my lovely bass. I haven't named it yet, but I think we've been together now about 6 months or so, and I think it's sounding a lot better. It was sounding great in the beginning, but it's really improving now. So, improvisation. A little bit of chat first of all. Improvising, one of the things that I guess not so experienced bass players, or perhaps all bass players, dread is that moment when a sax player turns around to you and you have to take the solo. The reason partly we dread it is because everybody shuts up and we have to carry on pretty well, sometimes absolutely on our own. If we're lucky, we might get a drummer just tapping out a rhythm, and if we're really lucky, we might get a very empathetic pianist or guitarist doing a little bit of comping, but not really helping too much. So we've got to carry it all ourselves. And I'm going to try and give you a few tips today to help you over that initial moment of fear, and give you some ideas for how you can start soloing. Obviously, this is really addressed to those people who've got into jazz jams, they maybe have done a few gigs, but they're kind of dreading that moment, as I say, when somebody turns around and said, it's your turn. Okay, so soloing or improvisation, over changes really. The key thing is, it sounds simple, but you've got to know what key you're going to be playing in. That's the first thing. Really know what key you're playing in. You should have worked on those scales, hopefully, and you'll know which notes are in those scales. The second thing is to know the tune, because if you can even sing the tune, then you've got some idea of where the melody is going, how it's matching with the chord changes underneath, and of course it's working with that rhythm and that tempo that you're playing it in. So know your key, particularly the bridge actually, little point, the bridge is often in a different key, and that's the trip up point, I should say. So know your key, know the bridge key, know where you're going, be fairly familiar with your chords, even if you're looking at them, that helps. But I think the most important thing is to know the melody, preferably if you can play it on the bass, that'll be great. And then obviously you've got to be aware of what sort of style you're playing in, and keep within that style if you can. Okay, so we're going to have a little look at well, on the sunny side of the street today. I was playing that, or playing the melody of it just as the video was opening. So some key things to look for, or think about rather, when you're about to approach the solo and you're improvising. You're actually composing as you're going along. This is the key thing. We are all composers. We're composing very largely as bass players as we're going along and walking the bass or playing even in a groove. We're creating something that's different. We're not playing exactly the same each time, and we're usually not reading from notation on a music stand. Okay, so what should we think about? Well, in my opinion, we need to first of all think about how to shape our solo. So the shape means thinking about how we start off, which I suggest would be fairly simply, getting more complex as the solo comes to a crescendo, probably about 3/4 of the way through. And then we need to think about tailing off and allowing then another player to take over. Now, let's assume that we're doing the usual bass thing and we only get one chorus, so we don't have much time to shine. So think about that over the course of the piece of music. That means probably when we get into the bridge, we should be thinking about sort of becoming our most exciting and our most sexy, if you like, in playing terms. So we've got a shape. We've thought about that a little bit. Of course, all this is happening in a microsecond, just as somebody turns around to you. But hopefully you've thought a little bit about it as well as the tune was called and you're starting to think about it. My other little top tip is to really think in terms of emulating a little bit of the melody itself. So here we've got the standard. So we could start off with something like. So there we are. That's just a little bit of soloing around the melody itself, not playing the melody, but just emulating little bits of it and embellishing it, or even keeping it simpler. think also in terms of maybe rhythmic things. So something like that. So we're just using that simple thing and repeating. So if you like the idea of what you created, it needs only to be 2 or 3 notes, then repeat it, embellish it a little bit, go with it rather than fighting it. It doesn't have to be something that's incredibly clever at that stage. And then you can get a little bit more complex. The complexity can be rhythmic, it can be melodic, it can be playing outside the changes and so on. So you've got yourself now the emulation of the actual tune. You can start with simplistic rhythmic things, and then you can think about what else you do on top of that. So really, to conclude this little mini talk about improvisation, I would say really learn your melodies if you possibly can, because if you can refer to those while you're playing, everybody in the audience will know what you're doing. Start off simple, could be just simple, it could even be 1 note. Something as simple as that. Build it up then and drop it down again. Think in terms of it's going to be 1 chorus or 2 choruses, and build up and drop down accordingly. And above all, remember you are performing. You're going to be playing to that audience there. And imagine you're playing to individual members of the audience. Just choose one and think, I'm going to impress him or her. And it's really about impressing with your take on the music. You don't necessarily have to be super sophisticated, but you want them to feel that you're really feeling the music and you're providing them with something fresh and new that you've never done before. So that's it from me. I have been Paul Jefferies. I am a bass player, and you can check me out on www.pauljefferies.com or at www.thelittlelivemusiccompany.co.uk, which is a little company I run to set up pop-up jazz clubs all around the country. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks very much.